start
That's what you like about it.
committee of the whole on our budget hearings, and we're going to continue on with Mr. Zimmerman from continuation from last week.
Thank you, President Person, members of the City Council. I'm Greg Zimmerman, Public Works Administrator. Going to start off where we left last week, talking about the Public Works Department budget. Last week, we went through some of the new program requests and also some of the accomplishments from the last 2 years. And we broke off at the point where we're going to look forward into the proposed accomplishments for 2019 and 2020. I'm going to start off with the Maintenance Services Division. As you know, they maintain the city's rights-of-way, maintain service rating, satisfactory rating of 85%, which means that their mission is to satisfy at least 85% of the customers that they work with and residents feeling that they'd gotten good service, received good service. Maintain a street overall condition index rating of 70. We talked a little bit about that last week. It's the condition of our roads. Provide high-quality water in sufficient quantity, minimize surface water flooding and wastewater overflows, and ensure safe, available, and reliable vehicles and equipment for city use. Speaking about that, I'm just going to spend a minute or two on the equipment replacement budget. And as I talk, I'm going to be referencing pages out of the draft budget book. Not that I expect you to be flipping back and forth, but these are where the numbers are coming from, and certainly I want to make sure that I reference those pages so that you have an opportunity to look at them as I go through my presentation. So the equipment rental fund is on page 3-131 and 132. There's a list of the replacement vehicles on those 2 pages. And the equipment rental replacement budget is set for $4.1 million in 2019. That's on page 3-132, and $1.8 million for the year 2020. The difference for the reason there's such a big difference in the amount of budget for those 2 years is, you'll recall, in 2019 we're going to be replacing the remaining 29 police take-home vehicles, so that's why there's a higher expenditure in that year. I mentioned last week when we went through the proposed new program requests, and for that I'll go back to page 3-111. That's the page in your draft budget book that lists the new requests from the Public Works Department. We talked about the 7 new FTE new employees that are in the request, but I want to make sure that I mention the equipment that goes along with the 4 new maintenance workers, 2 of them in the wastewater maintenance section and 2 of them in the street maintenance section. For the wastewater maintenance section, we're also requesting a funding allocation, this is a one-time, of $95,000 to purchase a 1-ton construction truck with onboard air compressor. Usually when we add members to the maintenance staff, we need to make sure we keep up with our equipment inventory too, so that they have equipment to work with and we get the level of service improvement that we're looking for. Likewise, in the street maintenance section, we're going to be asking for an expenditure of $285,000 in 2019 for a self-propelled paver. That will replace our current paver, and it's a larger paver, and we'll get a lot more capability in terms of how much pavement we'll be able to put down in a day of work. So that's an important piece of equipment, plus a 1-ton flatbed dump truck and additional operating supplies. So those are one-time additional costs for those vehicles in 2019 that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned.
Excuse me? But there will also the additional cost of equipment rental, the payback for those machines, right?
Right, that's
Okay.
correct. Okay, Utility Systems Division. I'm going through the looking forward one division at a time, and we've got the 3 divisions. Utility Systems Division, we have The major capital improvement projects that we'll be working on includes the Kennydale Lakeline Sewer System Upgrade Project, the Kennydale 320 Zone Reservoir Project. That's the reservoir, as you know, that's on Northeast 20th Street near Fire Station 15 that's under construction. The Northeast 16th Street and Jefferson Avenue Green Street Stormwater Retrofit Project. That's kind of a continuation of the project that's adding sustainable type surface water improvements, including permeable sidewalks in that part of the Highlands neighborhood. The Highlands 435 Zone Reservoir Replacement Project, the Northeast 12th Street Transmission Main Replacement Project that's associated with the Highlands Reservoir, Cedar River 205 Levee Recertification, and the Downtown Utility Replacement and Rehabilitation Project. We're just finishing up, actually early, on the Renton Hill Utility Replacement Project. We've got some funding in the budget for 2019 to finish the project, but the good news is it looks like that project's going to be completed about a year before schedule. So I always like to have that news, that we hold on to our budget and are finishing faster than we thought we would.
You mind if I interrupt?
No, go ahead.
Just a question on the paving of that. I know when you're done, it's in the budget to pave all the streets to bring them back.
Yes.
Will that be done as soon as possible after they're through?
We have a proposal. What the original contract is showing is that the utilities will put the overlay money into the annual overlay contract for 2019, which means it would be done in the summer of 2019, so it would be hot patched until then. It wouldn't be left in just an open condition. But the contractor has put forward a proposal to finish the paving this year, and we're really looking into it. We're looking at the cost and so forth. It would be much better, much more advantageous to finish the paving this year and not wait till next summer. So that we're considering that favorably, and if the price is right, we'll be coming to you with that change.
Okay. I guess.
Awesome.
I mean, because if you weren't going to do it until next year in the summer, you can't leave it with the temporary patches that they'd have today.
No, they would have to be pulled up, and then leveled hot patch would have to be put
Okay.
in. But better yet would be to complete the whole street. So that's what we're hoping to do.
I think there's two of us up here that would appreciate that.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. This is a map of the major utility capital improvement projects for the biennium. They're color-coded, and these are just the major projects. We have smaller ones as well. You'll see the joint capital projects are kind of shown in a pink color. Those are the downtown rehabilitation utility projects, the projects in the city core, where we're doing the conversions from one-way streets to two-way streets. And as I mentioned, I think last week, the utilities are putting in about a total of $12.5 million over the next 2 years to make sure all of the utilities are in before we start repaving the roadways. So you don't want to repave the road. Experience has taught us that you don't put the utilities in later. You do it before the paving. So the utilities have all of that under design, and that's part of a significant part of their 2019-2020 capital improvement program, is to make sure those utilities are improved and we've got new, correctly sized utilities for the downtown revitalization. This slide shows the expenditures for the capital utility CIP for budget years 2019 and 2020. I'm going to go through the three individual piped utilities and just talk about the major projects and talk about the budget for those major projects. Couple of the major projects I've got some graphics for. As you know, the Kennydale Lakeline Sewer Project work is underway on that project as we speak, mainly to clean out the line to make sure we don't have any interruptions in service over the winter months. But the project will repair 5,200 lineal feet of sewer main in Lake Washington and at least 31 service laterals to the residents that use that sewer, and replace the flush and lift stations. The budget for the project is $3.4 million, and construction will be undertaken in 2019 and 2019-2020. It's one of our larger sewer projects.
Just a question is, I understand why we need to do it, and it's a good thing that we're doing it, but I guess, how do you, does that pipe then lay on the top of the
No, it will still be on the bottom of the lake,
bottom?
and we're putting in some intermediate maintenance manholes that will allow us better access to clean out the lines than we have now and improve the ability to flush out the lines. And the lines haven't been cleaned, completely cleaned, for years and years and years, so we're doing that as well. So it's just going to make the maintenance much easier and assure that the quality of the lines are in good shape, so we don't have any possible incidents like leakage into the lake or backups.
And that line serves more than just the houses on the lake?
It's mainly the houses on the lake.
Mainly the houses on the lake, okay.
The Kennydale 320 Zone Reservoir is the big reservoir that's being built off of Northeast 30th Street, right next to Fire Station 15 that's under construction. I know you're all pretty familiar with that project. It's a 1.3 million gallon reservoir. The reservoir will provide redundancy and reliability of the water system. The total budget is $10.5 million, but if you look at your budget numbers, you'll see there's only $500,000 showing in the year 2019, and that's because that's a project that we've banked money for over the years. As you'll recall, one of the things we do to hedge against spikes in utility rates is when we know these big projects are coming up, we intentionally build up a fund balance so that we have money to build the projects without suddenly requesting a whole bunch of money from our ratepayers. So this is a case in point.
So basically we have the money ready
Yeah.
to build it?
We've got 10 million of the 10.5 million we need ready.
Okay.
The new 6.3 million gallon reservoir will be built on the existing Highlands Reservoir site that's located at Northeast 12th and Monroe Avenue Northeast. And this replaces a 76-year-old leaky reservoir system. It just didn't make economic sense to go on and try to restore and patch that system. It needs to be replaced. This is only one phase of the project. The 2019-2020 budget for the project is $4.7 million, and likewise, we banked up money for this project, so to a certain extent. The whole project for that site is $20.5 million, but it won't be built in this biennium. It'll be built in following years, the rest of the reservoir facilities. And then the Cedar River 205 project levee and flood walls. We are required by FEMA to recertify the levee at the mouth of the Cedar River to make sure that it will maintain the 100-year flood elevation. This is a service that used to be provided by the Army Corps of Engineers, but they got out of the business about 5 years ago, and local jurisdictions are required to do that now. So we're doing a bunch of studies to determine what needs to be done, if anything, to the flood walls, and we believe the project will cost about $3.8 million. The studies will reveal if that's an accurate number. It just depends on how many improvements we need to make in terms of the freeboard and other elements of the flood walls, maintenance types of considerations. The total project budget being $5.8 million. The good news about this project is it's entirely funded by the King County Flood Control District. We have a grant for that, just like the dredging was. So I'm going to dive down a little bit more in the utilities and then move on to transportation systems. The Surface Water Utility Capital Improvement Program is laid out on page 5-191 of your budget book. The 2019 capital budget is $3.4 million, and the 2020 capital budget is $5.2 million. Major projects is the Cedar River levee recertification that I just talked about, and Madsen Creek improvements, $1 million to try to correct the flooding situation that occurs periodically at Ron Regis Park and some of the local residences down there. Complete the Renton Hill stormwater utility improvements, which I think we're going to try to complete this year. and the Jefferson Avenue Northeast Green Connection projects, which will install 1,300 linear feet of stormwater and bioretention facilities between Northeast 16th and Northeast 12th. It's kind of an extension of the previous project we did along that street. Also the downtown utility improvement projects, the surface water portion of that project, this is the project for the revitalization of downtown, is $7 million. So over the 2 years, we'll be spending that to put in new stormwater systems in the downtown core. Wastewater Utility is proposing a $7 million capital improvement budget in 2019 and $5 million in 2020. The budget sheet for this is page 5-173. It lists the projects that we're proposing to build. The major project is the $3.7 million Kennydale Lake Line that I just talked about a moment ago. The $2 million downtown sewer replacement, so wastewater's portion of that bill is $2 million when we fix those, upgrade those utilities in the downtown. And the $1.8 million lift station rehabilitation project. And there's other projects as well, but those are the main large ones. And then the water utility capital improvement program for the 2 years. That is shown on page 5-153 of the budget book. Highlights of the program, we're proposing to spend $9.1 million in 2019 and $7.8 million in 2020. The major projects are the Highlands 435 Reservoir near the fire station that we just talked about, $4.7 million for that one. The Kennydale, the Highlands 435 Reservoir is in the Highlands Reservoir site. That's for $4.7 million. The Kennydale Reservoir is $10.5 million. And as I mentioned, $10 million of that's in fund balance. And the reservoir recoating project is $400,000. And the downtown water main replacement project for the revitalization work is $3.5 million. So all three of the piped utilities together are proposing to spend about $12.5 million to prepare the downtown for the street improvements and the revitalization work. So it's a major theme of our 2-year program.
Any questions on this, other than me?
Sir?
Oh, go ahead.
No, sir.
No. All this money that you're talking about to do is coming out of the utility rates, right?
That's right.
Okay.
No no general fund.
No,
money.
no general fund, and we're not doing any bonding on these.
That's right.
We're paying it. And I, just for the history of people who don't know, the city a long time ago, even before I was on the council, got in big trouble by bonding all these projects. So the decision by a council many long time ago was that we were going to slowly get away from that and keep the rates, raise the rates enough that we could put money away so that it would save us money in the long run, because then we could just pay cash for these projects. So this is a lot of money, but this is something that has been over a 20-year project to get us to the point to be able to do this. So I compliment Greg, because he was one of the guys that came to us and said, we can't continue to do this. So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Not debt financing this, financing these improvements through rates and through the special connection charges, those are the main sources of the revenue, has really allowed us to have a reasonably sized capital improvement program without going further in debt. So it's been very beneficial. That leads probably to the climax of the utility discussion. How did this work? How does this work result in rate changes for the residents and the businesses in Renton? We think it's pretty good news, particularly for the 3 piped utilities. We're not proposing any rate increase for water, wastewater, or surface water for 2019, so we can continue to go another year without raising the rates with those 3 piped utilities. And then modest increases of 2% for water, 2% for wastewater, and 2% for surface water in 2020. So it's we're able to fit that capital improvement program in without really making a large rate increase. This will carry us through for the 2 years. The story with the solid waste rate isn't quite as modest, unfortunately. We're looking at a 4% increase in 2019 in the solid waste rate and 4,000 in 2020. The main drivers for this is we've got some pass-through costs that we have to pass along to our residents and our customers. King County is increasing their tipping fee 4.6% in 2019, so that's a number that we have to pass through to our residents. Also, there's a large increase in the local hazardous waste fee that we pass through, and you'll probably recall that our contract with Republic Services has a consumer price index increase written into the contract. That's about 3.7%, it turns out, in 2019. I'm not quite sure what the CPI number is for 2020, probably about in that range. So you've got these a lot of drivers that are forcing us to have to increase our revenues to pay for these increased costs that we have. Still, with the consumer price index at 3.7%, the 4% increases isn't that far off the CPI.
Just on this, just as a point, I took a look at my utility bill today and figured out what this 2% raise was going to be for the piped utilities. It comes about 60 cents a month. So I think that's very reasonable. And then just to explain to the public, the tipping fees is what it costs King County to tip the truck out at the landfill to put basically what we're paying per ton to have our garbage dumped at out at the King County landfill. And then also on your other one is going to be that we'll be seeing an increase in, and I don't think we know that yet, is we have to pay a sewage rate to King County for how many gallons, and that
their increase is 2.5% in
better than I thought it would be.
2019, so we can absorb that without a rate increase passed on to our
Okay.
residents.
Great. Thank you.
Now, on Transportation Systems Division, I don't think I need to spend a whole lot of time on that because we went through just in September the changes to the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program. Our major projects are on Duval Avenue Northeast roadway improvements, Renton Avenue South roadway preservation. That's a big overlay project. Williams Avenue South and Wells Avenue South, the next one of our conversions projects from one-way streets to two-way streets downtown, and the Lake Washington Loop Trail Phase 3. Some of you, maybe all of you, will remember this map from the 6-year TIP. It breaks out these projects into different colors because we've categorized the projects in maintenance and preservation, corridor projects, traffic operations and safety, and non-motorized projects. We have added 8 new projects to the TIP. They're listed here. 3 of them are bridge projects. Bronson Bridge, the Hauser Way Bridge, and the Williams Avenue Bridge. All 3 of those projects are seismic retrofit bridge painting, sandblasting and painting projects to make the bridges last longer, to extend their lives. And we have approximately $9 million in grants and state participation in those 3 bridges, so that's pretty helpful. We do have an ambitious capital improvement plan in transportation. It's $20.8 million in 2019 and $23.8 million in 2020. We have some pretty good revenue sources. We've secured for these 2 years $19 million in grant money. So a lot of this will come through grants, which is fortunate. You'll see some asterisks here in 2020. In 2020, this includes $6.2 million of undetermined funds. $3.4 million of those undetermined funds are in the form of a TIB grant for the Wells and Williams Avenue project. The TIB agency will make a decision on the grant near Thanksgiving. That's when we're expecting to hear a decision. And some other funding is for purchase of right-of-way, $2.4 million for Sunset Avenue, and that is probably going to be pushed off into 2021 anyway, so we'll have a budget adjustment. The long and the short of it is we'll have enough funding in 2020 revenues to pay for our capital improvement projects. And as you know, we make mid-year and quarterly budget adjustments, so we'll make sure that we take care of that particular funding source, undetermined funding source before we get to the time that we need the money.
Yeah. Mr. President.
Yes.
Thank you, Greg. Great presentation. Could you explain for the benefit of the people there, our residents, that when you say underfunded projects, it doesn't mean that we are going to go in debt, that if we don't have the money, the projects are not going to be complete?
That's right. We'll either determine the revenue source, and we're counting on getting the TIB grant, but we can't be sure of that because it's a competitive process. And then we make adjustments. Sometimes the adjustments are to delay the project for a year until we can secure the funding in a different way. Sometimes we find other revenue sources. But one way or another, we'll make sure that we don't go into debt and we'll have sufficient revenue for the capital program.
Thank you, Greg.
So we've got some high priority projects in the corridor projects. Those are our largest ones. The Duval Avenue Northeast roadway improvements from Northeast 7th to Sunset Boulevard, including sidewalks, is the council's #1 priority corridor project, so we're making sure that we get that one on time. Williams Avenue South, Wells and Williams project, the one-way to two-way street conversion from South Grady Way up to North First Street, then the Park Avenue North extension, and the Rainier Avenue South North Corridor improvements Phase 4, which is from South 3rd Street to Northwest 3rd Place, and we have about $7 million of grant funding secured for that project.
Okay, Greg, I know there's a couple people that are really interested in the Duval project, and that is fully funded, and
Yes.
we should be underway next spring, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And we secured, as you know, a Department of Ecology grant to help us extend the sidewalks, and so we're funded for that project.
Okay.
I'll go over this kind of quickly because I know we've got some time constraints. In our categories of projects, the maintenance and preservation projects, the top 4 priority projects are the street overlay project, which is $2.2 million a year, the arterial rehabilitation program, which we usually use to fund our portion of grants for STP federal grants for overlay projects, such as the Renton Avenue project and the South 43rd Street project. Then the Renton Avenue South resurfacing, that's one of those projects I just mentioned, $1.9 million from South 130th to Hardy Avenue Southeast. That'll be happening next spring and summer.
Just want to clarify that. That's the Renton Avenue going off of Rainier Avenue up to Skyway.
That's right. That particular part, you're right. There's a couple of Renton Avenues that run through the city, but that's the one on the west side.
Yeah.
And then Southwest 43rd Street resurfacing, $2 million, and half of that is in federal grants.
Yeah, Mr. President. Greg, could you explain a little bit more our sidewalk rehabilitation and replacement program? Normally, sidewalks are in the big interest of our residents, so could you explain a little bit more what is the long-term plan for the sidewalks and what we have done in the last couple of years to make sure that we have more, that appropriate more funds to this program, please?
Right. We have 2 sidewalk programs in the TIP. One of them is a maintenance and preservation program where we replace sidewalks that are old and in bad shape. Maplewood neighborhood has gotten a lot of their sidewalks repaired through that program, and other Highlands and other neighborhoods as well. That's funded at between $100,000 and $200,000 a year, which isn't a huge amount of funding, but we use that funding in key places. We calculate what the condition of the sidewalks are, and we try to distribute that money throughout the neighborhoods. Then we have the Missing Link program. I call it the Missing Link program. Really, it's the program to build sidewalks where there currently are no sidewalks. That's about $250,000 a year. And that we have a prioritized sidewalk program that puts, that lists the priority of the sidewalks based on how many people use them, based on the proximity of schools and other types of criteria. And so that's $250,000 a year. And then third thing we do is we emphasize sidewalks in our big corridor capital improvement programs. We do complete street standards, and we build a lot of sidewalks through that program as well.
Thank you.
Transportation improvement, non-motorized projects, the top two for those are the Lake Washington Loop Trail, which is a $3.8 million project, and the Lake to Sound Trail is $3.7 million. We have quite a bit of grant money for the Lake Washington Loop Trail and are going to build that project, and I think we're going to start construction in 2019, so we'll get that project built. And other programs, these are just smaller programs to develop our TIP over the years. At the airport, we have a list of projects that we're moving forward with. Airport office renovation, we have $3 million identified in the budget to do the construction. We're going to finish the design of the airport office renovation this year and then move to construction starting in spring is what our intention is.
Mr. President, is the airport office renovation, the funds used for that come from the airport fund?
It all comes from the airport fund, which really is lease revenue.
Okay, thank you.
We accumulate lease revenue for
Got a
that.
question, Carol?
So the earthquake improvements, are those included in the airport office renovation, or is there?
That's it, yeah, the
Okay.
seismic retrofit and some
Yep.
office upgrades and improvements.
Okay, thank you.
And then major facility maintenance, $175,000 a year. This slide was made before some revisions were made, so I have to apologize to you in the capital improvement program. It shows $1.1 million in 2019. That's been reduced to about $925,000 because $200,000 in snow equipment removal has been pushed from 2019 to 2020. The biggest change is I show $2.2 million on the 2020 budget. That included a $1.7 million FAA grant for taxiway alpha improvement, but we have come to realize that that grant is still a couple of years off because it's tied in with our airport master plan. So we think we're going to get that grant in 2022 rather than in 2020, based on the sequencing of where we are with our airport master plan. So actually, the capital improvement program in 2020 is only $525,000, not that $2.2 million shown, because that $1.7 million of project's been pushed out 2 years. Then I've got some statistics just to finish up my presentation. We've got 311 street miles, lane miles of, or no, actually centerline miles of streets and 682 lane miles of streets in the city of Renton. We've got 15,500 street signs. That's getting to be a lot of street signs to manage and maintain. The number of city-owned street lights is 4,900, and you know all of those have been converted from halogen lights into LED lights, so we're getting a cut in our power consumption costs because all of those are LEDs. 135 signalized intersection, 8 paved miles of alleys, 87 flashing school beacons. One thing that hasn't changed is the area of the airport over time, but the amount of landings and takeoffs have changed. In 2000, these are 2016 numbers, I think, 135 takeoff and landing, which is up from 112,000 the year before. So the airport's getting busier as time goes along. And the number of planes delivered in 2017, I'm sorry, it's 2017 that the 135,000 flights. So that's a 2-year increase over the 112,000 that happened in 2015. So the airport got busier in that amount of time in those 2 years. And then the number of Boeing aircraft delivered in 2017 was 529. We all know that number is going up. And back in 2015, it was 495. So we saw some increases then, we're seeing bigger increases now.
Mr. President, help me to understand. As you mentioned, the airport is getting busier, but is proportionally to the increase of the revenue that we're receiving from the airport?
That's really not, because the leases are written in a way that every 3 years, we just apply consumer price index to the lease numbers, which is similar to what we do with our solid waste contract, the CPI increase. And then every third year, we reappraise the value of the property and change the lease rates based on the change in the property value. So it's not based on the activity of the airport, it's based on land value, actually, and the consumer price index.
Go back.
And then I've got some statistics for the utilities. I won't go through those. It's just real quickly, but the numbers show how many service connections and how many customers that we have. And we're still consuming about 2.5 billion gallons a year of water. And I think that's pretty similar to 2 years ago. So that concludes what I had to present. If you have any questions.
Any questions from anybody else? I got a couple of little quick ones that I just more comment than anything else, but on page 3119 where you're showing maintenance, and it says completed the clock tower maintenance. So is that the clock tower down at the transit?
Yes, that's that clock tower. We have to reset the time periodically. It seems to go out of whack and do some other things too.
Okay, and then from the maintenance, this is on 3-122, and you're talking about respond and replace damaged, stolen street fixtures, poles, and copper wire. Are we still having a problem with this, the theft of the copper wire from our?
No, not as much. We really had a big-time problem during the Great Recession, and then a couple of years after that, and it seems to have tailed off a little bit. Part of that is because we're welding closed some of our boxes, so it's harder to get at them. So part of that is steps we've taken, because it's harder for people to get inside of our pole boxes to get to the copper wires. But part of it, I think, is the economy.
Okay. And then on 3-126, oh, that's the wrong page. Anyway, you talk about the amount of credits we have in the valley for the, what do you want to call it? Mitigation for wetlands.
Oh, the wetland mitigation bank.
And
yeah.
we still have a lot of those.
Yeah, we have most of those credits left. And we have two choices what to do with the credits. What the purpose of the credits are, that's a concentrated urban wetland. So if you have a development project or if you have a capital improvement project that is going to damage or impair a small local wetland, you can buy wetland mitigation credits, which is the money to use to create that property into wetlands, and mitigate that way rather than have it impact your actual project on site. So it's a very efficient way to preserve the environment, because we've got acres upon acres upon acres that's protected for the life of the property, protected wetlands.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
And the next one up I have is
Jan Hahn, Administrative Services.
Administrative Services, and while they're getting set up, I'm going to insert our legislative budget. And this should only take about 2 minutes, because I think we've talked about it before, but we need to add funds for attorney fees for public hearings. We just had one hearing that didn't go even to the hearing. It just cost, but it still costs us $5,900. And so there is $2,000 in our budget, the council's budget. So my recommendation would be that the council add, make it $25,000 or $30,000, just in case. I mean, if we don't use it that's great, but otherwise we don't, the money's there in case we have a hearing. And unfortunately, we never know when somebody's going to appeal one of our hearing examiners' decisions, and the council made a decision that we would be hearing those
Yeah.
hearings. And the reason is to the public is that if we don't hear them, it goes to Superior Court, and it takes the interaction of the council with our citizens out of place. So I'd like to recommend that we put in 30,000 extra, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah, no problem.
Seems good?
Okay,
Sounds good.
you got, is that clear direction?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Hahn, you're up.
Thank you, Jan Hahn, Administrative Services Administrator. I'm here to present the Administrative Services Department budget, which starts on page 3-29 of your preliminary budget document. This slide represents the organizational chart for the Administrative Services Department. We're organized into 3 divisions. First, we have Finance, headed up by Jamie Thomas, Fiscal Services Director. Information Technology, headed up by Mehdi Sadri, Information Technology Director. And so the City Clerk's Division, headed up by Jason Seth, who is our City Clerk Public Records Officer. The proposed budget for 2019 and 2020 includes the staff additions of 3 FTEs, which I will talk about during this presentation. With these 3 new FTEs, the total count will be 48. This is our department mission statement. Administrative Services serves both customers internal to the organization and external, but in either case, our mission is to provide service through efficient and accessible information. This slide represents our core services for the Administrative Services Department. The City Clerk's Office provides legislative support, records management and records request fulfillment, hearing examiner coordination and support. Finance covers all financial operations. This includes, for example, accounts payable, payroll, accounts receivable, business licensing, and utility billing, as well as budget and financial planning. Information Technology handles all of our voice and data communication systems, maintenance and support of our network and infrastructure, application development and support, and end-user support. The Administrative Services budget impacts 4 city service areas, including safety and health, utilities and environment, representative government, and internal support, with that latter one, internal support, making up the majority of Administrative Services. Our budget is approximately $12 million a year, and we propose to add 3 FTEs, 2 in information technology and 1 in finance, for a total of 48 FTEs. Starting with IT, the proposed budget for administrative services includes 1 information technology network system specialist to meet existing and upcoming system needs for technology infrastructure that's steadily growing. The proposed budget also includes 1 information technology service desk technician to support over 800 customers, 1,900 devices, and to respond to more than 3,200 staff support requests per year. Part-time salaries are also proposed to be increased by $15,500 in 2019 and another $7,000 in 2020 to accommodate increased help desk assistance required for new employees citywide and IT equipment in the new police take-home vehicles. This additional part-time salaries will also help us deal with the customers' devices and staff support requests that I previously mentioned. We propose to increase supplies by $184,200 in 2019 due to additional IT small equipment purchases related to new employees citywide and IT equipment for the new police take-home vehicles. Other services and charges is proposed to be increased by $311,380 in 2019 due to increased costs for IT services for contracts, cell services, data cards, and new employees citywide, and IT equipment, again, for the pre-approved police take-home vehicles. In the City Clerk's Division, Intergovernmental Services, we are asking for an increase of $95,500 to cover the increased cost for voter registration. Interfund payments increased by almost $132,000 in 2019 due to finance and city clerk payments to IT to support increased technology costs. And in finance, we propose to add one financial analyst 3 to support the Healthy Housing Initiative for licensing and complying with, which ensures safe and healthy housing for Renton residents who live in rental housing. This slide represents a few of our department performance measures. I know that the print is really small, so if you want to see a little more clearly, you can see it on page 3-31 of your budget document. Administrative Services operates 19 programs, 14 of which fall within the internal support citywide service area. You can see many of the metrics that we use on this slide, but some of the important things to note. In finance, of our business license renewals, nearly 90% were issued within 1 day of renewal. We had approximately 500 compliance audits in 2017, and that involves letters, calls, and emails to businesses that should have been licensed. Of the 855 new licenses we issued in 2017, 429 of them were as the result of that outreach effort that we made. The City Clerk's Division processed 140 legislative documents and nearly 700 internal documents in 2017. Utility billing answered phone calls within 5 minutes 100% of the time. And they significantly reduced the aged, and that's over 90 days, reduced the aged accounts in utility billing. IT maintained our uptime for our systems at 99.99%. IT work orders for service desk had a dramatic year at 4,514 in 2017. And for the city as a whole, we've maintained our AA+ bond rating, which is very good because it helps us save money when we go to issue debt, especially at a time like this where we're talking about issuing the park improvement bonds. We had quite a few accomplishments in all of the divisions in 2017. For this biennium, finance transitioned both financial and customer service functions to a new garbage service provider. They realigned finance tasks amongst the various members to help increase efficiency, to rebalance the workload, and to help with employee development. They also created a framework for an inclusion and purchasing program for the city in coordination with the City Clerk's Office as part of the Mayor and Council's business plan initiative for building an inclusive city with opportunities for all. Information technology was really busy with implementing over 10 new projects, Bluebeam for electronic plan review, Praxis for tax and license management software, Facilities Dude for asset management for facilities, DocuSign giving us e-signature capability, Perfect Mind for recreation management, LIDAR for updated steep slope and contour mapping, GIS apps for fire pre-incident planning, and so much more. They also upgraded a lot of major enterprise systems as well, including, for example, Springbook for utility billing, InterGov for permitting and land use, Laserfish for document management system, and Telestaff for police and fire staffing. They improved many systems, procedures, and processes, including systems redundancies, resiliency in network servers, storage, backup, and mobility data structures. They significantly increased network performance through a 1 gigabyte regional fiber connectivity and improved online GIS services for better compatibility with mobile devices. They completed, as I mentioned, the over 3,200 service desk requests, supported and maintained many devices and applications, maintained a high network uptime, and passed a significant security audit. The city clerk's office has also been very busy with implementing the Public Records Act's compliance software, simplifying the process, and digitizing the ability to track, manage, and respond to requests. They submitted their first JLARC report, which they shared with council back in August. They reorganized the division to modernize operations, to comply with laws, to meet the evolving needs of residents and staff, and to align their work with the business plan. They also automated digital record-keeping processes for key lines of businesses and implemented digital record procedures for certain types of documents with the King County Recorder's Office. Each of the divisions have established a number of goals for the upcoming biennium. For finance, one of the priorities is to thoroughly review and audit various internal control functions throughout the city and to create specialized training and training materials and user manuals to ensure that the city's assets and resources are properly protected. We also want to continue to collaborate with information technology in the city clerk's office to expand the use of Laserfish for electronically filing accounts receivable, invoices, and payroll records. Another goal is to enhance our commitment to focus on customer service, particularly for the underserved and the vulnerable population. This includes both continuing our program for equity and inclusion in contracting, and also our efforts through utility billing, where we provide reduced rates for citizens who are 61 years or older, are permanently disabled, and who meet certain income qualifications. Also a program for annual tax rebates for those who qualify, and free lifetime animal licenses for residents who meet income qualifications. And the utility billing site also has quite a few resources listed on it that people can go to who might have those type of needs.
Jan?
Yes.
Where would people go if they think they qualify for the tax rebate or lower income
They can contact the utility billing office.
utility billing office? Okay.
For information technology, one of their goals is to establish information technology governance, advisory, and steering committees. This is consistent with a strategic plan that they completed a while back. They plan to update policies, procedures, and service level agreements, implement an enterprise-wide citizen request management system, implement a new archival email system and e-discovery system, implement new GIS field editing service for the Public Works Signs Group, upgrade the Public Works automated meter reading system, expand connectivity through fiber, collaborating with Community and Economic Development, Department of Transportation, 5G vendors, and local and regional partners, and to support the Renton Regional Fire Authority transition, and support new technology trends towards smart cities, Internet of Things, intelligent transportation system, and drones. Goals for the city clerk's office include development and implementation of a 5-year strategic plan, enhancing the records and information management program, also known as RAM. It's a 10-step program which reduces cost and improves efficiency of record keeping, establishes criteria for digitizing records to reduce storage cost, provides adequate protection for essential city records, and preserves city records that have historical value. A third goal is to upgrade Laserfish to improve internal and external access to records, and that will also reduce the number of public records requests received annually. And then finally, they are setting as a goal to enhance the hearing examiner calendaring and to simplify the process. So that is the budget and presentation for administrative services.
Ms. Perez?
Thank you. Thank you. That was a good presentation. So you're proposing 3 FTE full-time employees increase, 2 in IT, which I totally understand why, and 1 in finance. Will you help me to understand a little bit better? I know that this full-time employee is for helping with the Healthy Housing Initiative. Could you help me to understand better that position?
That position's role would be licensing and compliance, so that they would issue licenses related to that program and verify compliance by going out and making sure that all of the landlords who are renting properties are obtaining a license through the city.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No questions.
Not in this one.
Okay. The next up is going to be community services.
Okay.
Council President Person, council members, I'm Kelly Beamer, the Community Services Administrator for the city. Before I move on, I'd like to give credit where credit is due. I'm extremely lucky to work with an amazing team, super dedicated, very enthusiastic, love what they do, and love to serve the public. So if I could have the community services staff that's here, please wave. You don't need to stand, just wave. Thank you. Again, they're amazing, as I'm sure you know, but want to make sure that they were recognized. So as you can see, for the Community Services Department, the budget starts on page 355, works through page 373, I believe. Move on to the mission for the department is promote and support a more livable Renton community by providing recreation, museum, human service programs, neighborhood and special events, opportunities, golf course, modern parks and trails, and facilities, and undisturbed natural areas. And if you would like to, on each of the divisional pages, each division has their separate mission statements, but we won't go through that today. Here we have our organizational chart. As you can see, we have 8 divisions within the department. We have 1 vacancy. Fortunately, we just filled the facilities manager position. We filled it internally, so we will be posting for a supervisory position shortly, but for the most part, our management team is in place and working hard. But you can see the varied types of responsibilities that this department covers. In addition to their normal work responsibilities, we also have several board and commissions that we work with. Our boards and commissions, as you know, are ambassadors for us out in the public and are our eyes and ears at places sometimes that we don't get to be. And we are lucky to work with this group of people as well. Here we have our proposed budget by city service areas. As you can see, community service covers 5 of the areas. With that, in safety and health, is our human services division. Representative government is our volunteer program. Livable community is the majority of our department, which would be recreation, museum, parks and trails, aquatics, all of those type of programming services. And then utilities and environments encompasses the parks planning and natural resources division, along with the golf course, as they do protect the natural areas, the shorelines, the aquifers, and those kind of things with their responsibility. And then internal support, our facilities team falls within that. We have underneath that the budget highlights. You can take a look at that. I'm going to actually go through that in a little bit more detail. We're going to go by division to be able to go with their really high-level accomplishments, goals, and then what their proposals are per division. Again, another sample of our department's performance measures. Going across quite a few of the service areas. We represent now over 30 programs in the service areas. Our results will be more up-to-date and complete at the end of this year and into next year, as a lot of our maintenance management systems are coming on board to better give us the details that we can provide feedback from the surveys. So we'll go at a high level again through the divisions. Facilities division, their accomplishments you can see here. They've completed the facilities condition assessment that we presented to council a couple months ago on the overview of that. And you can see the numbers that they had called out in that assessment. Completed repairs to the Senior Activity Center. Fire Station 15 is on pace to be substantially complete in January 4th currently. So we're excited about that. As I'd mentioned before, implementing a new maintenance management system for facilities. It's called Facilities Dude, that takes care of the management system, which we brought on board a portion of it in June, towards the end of June. And an update from this slide, since I submitted this, from June to current, to today, Facilities has received 771 work orders and has been able to close 653 of those out. So again, extremely busy division. As you know, the facilities goals, again, a lot of them coming from our facilities condition assessment. We're going through the elevator installation and modernization project. They are actually working on that right now, and we're looking at the elevators to begin being installed after the first of the year. Our team will be sending out an Orgal email to everybody so that everyone that's within City Hall knows what to expect. We can only replace one elevator at a time, so we want to make sure that all of staff is aware of what's going on and some potential noise at different times. We also are working with administrative services, city attorney, community and economic development, and public works, working on standardizing our leases and what they look like, the guidelines that go along with that to protect the city and make sure that we're consistent with what we're presenting. And then we're also working with CED and the city attorney for one of the goals that we'll be looking at our 1% for art. The maintenance falls in the facilities division, so we want to make sure that we're addressing that appropriately as funding comes available. So for the facilities division, their proposal is to reestablish the pre-approved for budget year of 17-18, which was limited capital projects coordinator, and approve it for 19-20 to the full-time capital projects coordinator. Funds will come out of the 316 account. And again, as council's aware of the multiple projects that we have on board, this position will be taking care of that. We also request that we're adding a full-time custodial staff so that we can maintain all of our facilities at the level of service that's expected. Again, we have additional with the increase of citizens and programs. We have additional setups, which facilities and takedowns or teardowns that they are responsible for. So I want to make sure that we, again, can continue that service. And then lastly, one of the other important ones is to increase our .5 position in the facilities coordinator to a full FTE. Currently, this position, the .5, is funded out of the 108 fund, which is the lease fund. We want to utilize the 504 fund. This is an extremely important position, again, as we mentioned, implementing the citywide lease program and conditions, as well as all the space planning that's coming on board, and then ergonomics that continue to happen with an increasing workforce. Next is our Human Services Division. Again, their accomplishments at a high level: implemented the housing repair client software, coordinated with multiple agencies, as you can see, year-round with One Night Count, REACH, Arise, rotating shelter, cold weather shelter, and then work with Catholic Community Services that manages the cold weather shelter. Completed multiple manufactured home siding replacement, partnered with Habitat for Humanity, which is really important for our vulnerable population and being able to assist them. And then over 90% of the agencies that were funded in the 17-18 funding cycle for the grants were able to complete their service through that process. Our goals for 1920 for Human Services is to ensure, again, that through the 2019-2020 funding recommendations that go in front of council are able to be completed at 90% as well or above. Continue to look at and create additional funding streams to support the strategic plan and the funding cycle. Also work with local agencies to identify additional shelter locations, and looking also at how to long range our location for the feeding program. And then also look at other ways to, through succession plan, strategic plan, what the division looks like moving forward as we have a ever changing environment with this division. I'd also like the council to know as well, with the recommendations that are coming forward through the funding cycle for 1920, the Human Services Task Force spent upwards of 6 months reviewing the documents in detail and finally bringing forward the full recommendation for council. So the request from the Human Services Division is to $3,000 to assist the cold weather shelter. The past couple of years, we've had an increased number of times that we've had to open the shelter, so this will help with the contracting with Catholic Community Services to manage the shelter when we have to open it. And then increase the Housing Repair Assistance Program by $10,000. Again, this will help keep residents safe, healthy options within their home, and be able to address some of the projects that are on the wait list. Please stop me if I'm going too fast. I want to make sure I'm staying on time. So, next we have the Parks and Trails Division. You can see here that we provided interdepartmental support over the last couple of years, over 96 homeless encampment cleanups and irrigation right-of-way, 21 landscaped areas that we've addressed and maintained. And we've supported with this division, amongst other divisions, all the citywide events such as River Days, 4th of July, and all of the large events. And we've also expanded the Trail Ranger program, which was on the Cedar River Trail. We've expanded it to walking patrols at Coulon Park because of the increased activity there, and a lot of great feedback. Also want to remind that our homeless camp removal, the Parks Division is responsible for only removing camps that are on city property, and they work in partnership with the police, so we're out identifying. We've established a frequency program so that we have a form that goes out. We go to certain areas that are highly inhabited more frequently, so we'll go there more than once a week. Other areas are 2 to 3 times a month, and then other areas are once a month. So we're continually tracking that and keeping our funds moving in that direction. We also, on the private property, which is obviously not owned by the city, that's where code enforcement comes in. And so if we ever get requests that there's homeless camps on private property, then we work with code enforcement to make sure that they're aware of that, and they do an amazing job as well.
Kelly? On the encampments, I know we use a lot of contractors to clean them up because of hazardous waste. My concern is, have we put sufficient funds, or you put sufficient funds to cover, because that cost seems to be going up. And just as an editorial, it seems like if we don't keep up with those, the problem is going to get worse. And that's one of the, take traffic and police. I think the homeless thing get tied into that more than anything else there. So I just want to be assured that there's enough money in the budget to continue the program of using an outside contractor to get this, because I think the last time around on budget vouchers, we had about a $10,000 voucher. So
Yes.
I'd like to be assured somehow that there's more than sufficient money in there to take care of that. Ms. Perez?
Just to go to the same line of questioning, the same goes for our ballparks and our, trails and underneath the bridges. If there is sufficient, funds to continually clean those areas, not to wait just not once a year till it gets really,
Right.
And then gets more expensive if we wait for too long to maintain what we have.
Absolutely. So to answer both of your questions, that's why we put the frequency schedule in place so that we hit the areas that have greater tents and encampments showing up a little bit more frequently. Since the program started and we council approved the 0.5 position to be identifying the camps, we're seeing it leveling off a little bit and almost a little bit of a downturn. I'm not going to say for sure yet on a downturn until we see the numbers at the end of the year. The more that we're out and moving people out, the more that they are not staying in those areas and moving on. But we'll continue to work, Councilman Person, that looking at our budget, we've had some cost savings at the end of the year that if we did have a little overrun, we're not going to stop just because that's where we're at. We'll make sure that we do that. If we need to come forward for some reason later on, we'll make sure that we have sufficient funds for that.
And I see nods from everybody, all the council people, so I'm just pretty sure that if you need the money, you can come, and it's really a high priority.
Great, thank you.
Agreed.
So some of the accomplishments for the Parks and Trails Division, we had 2017 volunteers totaled 6,400 people, 49,000 hours, and a value of over $1.5 million. That small, it's not even a division, it's just a little program within, I shouldn't say a little, but it is a program within the division, does an amazing amount of work, and we're lucky that we have that many volunteers out in our community that want to continue to help Renton improve. We also distributed, as you can say, gift to play scholarships worth over $20,000. Summer lunch program, again, continues to be really successful. We partner with the Renton School District, where we've served 22,000 lunches this year. And then farmers market, again, 17 weeks, we averaged 3,000 people per week, which is amazing. That team, small team again, along with a lot of volunteers, does a fantastic job. I know that we looked at our EBT program was increased from 2017 to 18 by 54%. And then the Fresh Bucks, which is on the other side of the EBT program, just from 17 to 18 increased by 191%. So it's saying that people are using that program, they're eating healthy, and they're going to the farmers market, so another big success. Again, some of the highlights I'd mentioned that we've got maintenance management systems coming on board. The Parks and Trails is using the CityWorks software system, which is similar to what Public Works is using. And then our volunteer program does the citywide tracking of all volunteerism through the service software. So that's up and running, and they're training all the other departments as well. And again, as I mentioned, our goal is to continue to increase that supplemental nutrition program, the SNAP program. And then lead interdepartmentally the efforts, again, as we were just talking about the homeless camps, working with our police department, who's been fantastic partners, clearing encampments and on city-owned property. And then our another obviously big goal is to continue to support and provide all the services for our citywide events that we do for the community. The proposal for Parks and Trails is, the first one is budget neutral. So since we did the reorganization, Farmers Market moved into the Parks and Trails division. So that is just a swap of funds into a different account. And then we're asking, we haven't done this in 6 years, so the last 3 budget cycles, an increase to the supplemental wages by $25,000 to, again, like as it notes, that we can keep pace with the minimum wage. It continues to increase and be competitive with our surrounding jurisdictions. We had some difficulty this year trying to get our part-time staff, which is seasonal and we're very dependent on them. So this is definitely a need for that division. The golf course division highlights again, we're able to complete quite a few projects in-house and very efficient, as well as implementing quite a few marketing programs that's increased. You can see that the text marketing program now has over 1,200 members, which has been able to pull from not only for golf course things, but joint operations with the concessionaire and the golf course and the driving range. So definitely bringing in more consumers for that division. On the bottom there you can see, which we've done in-house, is the renovation of number 14 tee box. So from the left to right is the grading out, the placing of sod, and then the finished product. One of the great things about this doing in-house is that we've allowed our supervisor team to be able to teach and train the other staff what to look for and how to do these projects. And again, in-house, so minimal dollars are used for this. For 2019-20, the goals are recarpet the clubhouse, which actually may happen before the turn of the year, but they're working on that. We want to establish a golfers academy, so we have future golfers coming up all the time. And then continue to work on our in-house projects to beautify the golf course. We do have security cameras, enhancing what we had, replacing some of the older system that no longer works. So we'll have that on board, and then continue to provide the excellent service that golf course continues to see great compliments on the product that they have out there. The one proposal from the golf course is for the fee increases. Council, they go through competitive market analysis 3 times a year. Mainly the focus is obviously when we want to do fee increases, we make sure that, and we've talked to council in the past about this, that the municipal fee average and the area courses average, we go compare against about 12 other courses that are fairly comparable to what our golf course is. Council's always directed us, which has been good, to stay at the medium to higher range, but mostly median range. We want to make sure that we continue to attract the golfers out there and not raise rates too quickly and scare them away. So the proposal is here. It's also in the new fee schedule on page 7-18 has all of the fees. Parks Planning and Natural Resources accomplishments. A lot of you attended the Phase 1 completion of Sunset Park, which was fantastic. Also the Meadowcrest Playground Phase 2, which was the completion of that playground. They did an amazing job getting $4.1 million in federal, state, and local grants to help secure and complete the project, the Phase 1 project, and into the Phase 2 as well. As you can see, the 10th Tree City USA, the Coulon Park structural repairs have started. I don't know if you've been down there to see that, but they're underway. We'll be working through that park until the end of November, right before clam lights. Then the contractors will take a break for a month and then come back in and finish the repairs. And then also participated in 2 major plans for the city with the Civic Core Plan and the Trails and Bicycle Master Plan. We also were able to, as part of the highlights, to bring in that finally we have 2 on-board capital projects coordinators, so they're busy getting their feet wet and learning all of the Renton system. So it's exciting to have a full team there. The goals we have is, we mentioned completing Phase 2 construction for the park. Definitely a priority is adopting the new 6-year Parks, Recreation, and Natural Areas Plan. Very important. By doing this, gets us certified and we can apply for grants consistently, so we really need to get into that cycle. They're also looking at completing an ADA accessibility plan, which is exciting as well. And then from the council approved, we'll be looking at hot and heavy into the prioritization plans for the $14.5 million that address the major maintenance backlog. So the proposals for this division increase the planning maintenance by $12,000. This is the contracted maintenance that takes care of our landscape right-of-ways. These areas are continually increasing. So when transportation does a project, community services comes in and we take care of the maintenance in those landscape right-of-ways. Making a note to council, we may need to come forward again, depending on what L&I is looking at prevailing wage and some of the interpretations on what landscaping maintenance looks like and the cost of that, but currently we're asking the $12,000. And we also are asking to increase the contracted services by $64,500. This is the certified arborist. Through the last budget cycle, Community and Economic Development split that cost with Community Services. This year, it didn't work out through the budget request. This is a very highly needed position that addresses hazardous tree reviews and also addressing the community asks depending on their hazardous trees or what they're able to do. We also work with Public Works. I know you did ask about the sidewalk projects. A lot of that is joint partnership if there's trees that upheave the sidewalks that we need to come in and take care of. So we work with that as well. So another important position. History Museum, amazing what this division can do. This is, since our director came on board there, it's just been one after another, new exhibits coming in, exciting changes, working with the school district, working with other organizations, winning the Willard G. Memorial Award for the staff, hosted the Sorting Out Race, which with the 17 programs were hugely successful, which also supported our inclusion initiative as well. And then with the small staff, they also helped support and ran a program during the Juneteenth event and helped a little bit with a program within the Multicultural Festival. They held, on 2017, they actually did a program for the Multicultural Festival as well. And then they're looking at restarting, or have restarted actually, the museum's oral history program. And our past CAO was a beneficiary of that, so they've got a oral history from Jay Covington as well. Goals and highlights, we're fortunate enough to have the Smithsonian come to do a traveling exhibition. It's called Hometown Team, so more to come on that information, but pretty exciting to have that. We're looking at a couple projects with the museum, so we'll be replacing the signage on the outside of the museum. That's funded through a grant and then an assistance with our facilities team. And then we'd like to host 2 student-curated exhibits, again, really partnering with the school district. The kids have such a great time working with the museum staff. And then update the storage to improve the collection protection, if you will. It's an old building, so we want to make sure that moisture and thing doesn't come in and ruin anything that we have there. And they're also looking at, if time allows, replacing the track lighting in the facility with LED, more efficient lighting as well. Recreation Neighborhoods Division, accomplishments. We've increased the neighborhood program since 2016 from 72 recognized neighborhoods to 100, which is amazing. Just getting out in the community, and some of the changes we've done with the program has just been really exciting to watch that move forward. They developed a new sponsorship document, so we have something we can go out into the community that's got benefits if they do offer sponsorship dollars, and that led to $238,000 this year towards our programs and events. We also, through the King County grant, were awarded over $347,000 that helped. We're in a Best Starts for Kids grant, as well as some of the upgrades that was council priorities in the senior center, so it was nice to get that completed. And then, as you can see, help lead, along with the department, 30 citywide events, which is amazing. Those events continue to increase. And then through that division as well, they coordinated and permitted over 40 non-city events through our special events permitting process. Goals coming into 1920 is implementing the Perfect Mind software. So the current software class system is no longer supported. So the team is working on upgrading. That's a major undertaking, and we'll be onboarding that. They've been working on that for almost a year now, and so it should be coming up towards the first part of the year they'll be implementing it. We're looking at conducting our first ever recreation in neighborhood strategic plan, which would also include a cost recovery model. Again, we talked about special events permits. We want to make the process a little more friendly, so we'd like it to be online. And then also clean up some of the definitions and language within the process. And then again, our job is to continue to reach out to the community, so we want to continue to get more of our neighborhoods involved and recognize neighborhoods and show the benefit that it is to be part of this community. Their request is, one, the limited term recreation specialist, which is budget neutral. It's supported by the grant funds from the Best Starts for Kids. And then the second one is to implement the recreation and neighborhood strategic plan. We've asked for $50,000 for both 19 and 2020. So again, that will include, as programs and things are changing, our demographic is changing, what we need to offer needs to move with our public, and then look at our cost recovery model, as well as all the strategies moving forward. And then I'll run quickly through administration. So we did complete a reorg for the department. Again, the quality of life for the Parks, Trails, and Community Facilities Initiative successfully forwarded. So we're happy about that. I'll be moving on to those projects. We've held a management team retreat so that we continue to develop our team and our leadership. We're working on the management schematic design of the projects, which I gave council a briefing a few weeks ago on the Family First Community Center. And then we'll continue to hold spring and fall employee recognition events, because again, they really are the heartbeat of what we do. So for the goals and highlights, again, we'll continue to hold management team retreats, loving to keep everybody in the loop, and not just at the management level, but down through the coordinator level, so that they all understand where community services is moving forward. I mentioned we'll be moving forward on the CAC funding, the parks major maintenance projects. We'll continue to review and implement new surveys to make sure they're really aligned with our rent and results and the business plan. Work through managing in the construction of the Family First Community Center. One of our big goals is working intra-departmentally through our projects and events to make sure we're addressing things that we're not duplicating. So we're trying to get out ahead of those once we come up with new projects or plans, so that we're not having to backtrack or duplicate efforts. And then we will be completing our marketing and branding plan for community services that we also worked with our communications division as well. The two requests for administration division is to increase up to a 0.5 or ask for a 0.5 administrative secretary. We have 8 divisions, and obviously as the city grows, our initiatives, our plans, our projects, events, everything continue to grow, and we continue to go out and get grants. This position will specifically assist the Human Services Division, as well as looking at all the grant support, not just with Human Services, but department-wide. It's a pretty significant effort to do that. And then the last request is to add a deputy administrator in 2020. Again, as the department has increased, the population has increased, the number of programs, like I mentioned before, and events. Having 7 direct reports is pretty significant with comparison to other departments that are closer aligned to the 3 to 4 direct reports, and would allow the team in overall to focus highly on all of our new initiatives coming in, all of our new events, all of our new programs, marketing, everything that we need to continue to drive the department forward. So focus areas again, department team development, so continue to provide training and leadership training, community engagement, which is working with all of our population, collaboration with our other team members, departments, that we can make sure again that we're not duplicating efforts and being as efficient as possible, and also reaching out to community partners like the school district as well. We mentioned we had a lot of asset management systems coming on, so that's going to be a big focus for us to make sure that we continue to stay on top of that and get all the necessary relevant information out of that so we can pass that on to council. And then continue to protect the environment. We obviously have a lot of amazing parks and trails and open spaces and golf course that all touch parts of our environment, so we want to make sure that we're being responsible stewards of that, and we'll continue to make sure that's a priority. And with that, questions?
Ms. Perez?
Let me see. Hi, Kelly. Thank you very much for your presentation. So you are proposing to add 5 full-time employees. The community services currently have 1 administrator and 7 directors. Correct me if I am wrong. And one of the positions that you are proposing to add will be a deputy administrator. Was this position eliminated during the recession?
No, it was not. Our department has increased in number of divisions within the department, and as like I mentioned, as the years have gone on, population's increased. Initiatives, grants, all of the events, it's just gotten gotten bigger throughout the years.
Yeah.
So the number of direct reports for me to be able to support all the divisions and all the new programs that they want to do, which is great because we continue to get out in the community, to be able to have a deputy administrator to address a smaller portion of that where it's not meetings after meetings, it's being able to go out and focus on the initiatives and the public that is our responsibility.
Yeah. So other than the police department, this will be the only department that will have a deputy administrator.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. So in your proposed budget, you're going from you're asking for an increase of 1.72 millions for the department. Is that okay? That's okay. I have the number. I'm just
Yes.
thinking loud.
You're right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Any other questions?
I just had one. On the warming center, you proposed an increase of the budget of $3,000 to
Yes.
accommodate the growth and the need. Anticipating a cold winter and understanding that there's flexibility involved in that, I think that we should assume that that we could provide additional funding if we needed it, right? We have other access, okay. And that's just for running the heat and lighting and opening the facility.
Actually, the request is so when we open the cold weather shelter, we open it when other entities open as well. And so to manage that is we contract with Catholic Community Services. And so their team, they have 2 individuals that will go in and spend the night with whoever comes into the shelter. So they manage it. And those dollars go towards funding that.
It just seems like a small ask, so I just want to make sure that if the need comes up, that we can accommodate keeping it open as long as we need to. Assuming no one would disagree with that, right?
Brian?
Yes, thank you. With respect to the Human Services Advisory Committee, I think I heard you say they were evaluating the applications, and those recommendations are forthcoming.
Yes.
If I recall, in the last budget cycle, we did an increase due to some organizations getting defunded, I think was the reason behind that. Are we maintaining that level of the previous funding cycle, or did we revert back to where we were previously?
We're currently at the existing, not the enhanced one. We're still evaluating a few other entities or agencies that we may recommend, but we wanted to keep that separate from the budget request. As I said, we're still evaluating some of that, so the funding is the original amount that started.
I do have one question. And the golf course, excuse me, I'm getting sick here. So on the golf course budget, there were. Yeah, I got Kleenex. So there were a couple of items that, in the goals that you were looking at taking care of, like remodeling the kitchen and changing the range netting and replacing of the golf cart fleet.
Yes.
Is that something that we've been saving for, or is that an item that we would try and do through cash flow, or how are those funded?
It's because the golf course is an enterprise fund, it is for cash flow.
Okay.
So there are items that we continue to put, just like we do with our capital projects, we keep them on our list and then prioritize as we can get to them.
Okay.
So things like the carpet, which is number 1, we'll be able to fund that. The other items, well, some of like the golf cart replacement could be on a revenue-based, so there's different funding ways that we can get to that if they do get to that. Same with the driving range netting. There was a significant repair that they went through to lengthen the life of the nets, so we'll be able to continue to look at funds available and how we want to take care of that.
Perfect. Thank you.
I just want to clarify that the golf course is set up to be self-funding, so that
Correct.
so there's no general fund dollars going into it. So the problem with that is that if we have a real rainy summer, but they don't get the number of rounds in, and it then reduces the income. But it has been but we should be putting our bond issue, the bonds are now paid off, right?
That's correct.
And so we are hopefully banking.
We are, yes.
We're banking money that can fund this, so.
And they've been, again, thank you, Councilman Person. Yes, that's weather dependent, so year to year it can fluctuate a little bit. This year we've been fortunate enough they're ahead in rounds and ahead in revenue projections, but that can change as well. So not like utility fund where they're funds that are automatic and mandated, so.
Okay, and I only have one question. That's hard to believe, isn't it? It's on the page 3-57, if you want, it's the first one, and it says, it's the package for serving the vulnerable, low income. It has 4 employees, and it's 1.223,486 million. Is that basically our home improvement program?
Yes.
That's all I need to know. Any other questions?
I do have one more. Page 3-65, in one of your bullet points, you are proposing to install on the goals, 2018, 2020 goals, is install one new dog park facility, which I am all for that. But is this going to replace the existing dog park, or is going to be added? Is it going to be a
An added
second one? Okay.
The director's been working on some partnerships with a couple area churches, and so we're still trying to make sure we get, we just weren't ready to come forward with it to complete this year, and so we're looking at an additional one into next year.
Okay, thank you.
We have the city attorney up next.
Good evening. I am Shane Maloney, the city attorney, and I will give you an overview of the city attorney department budget. And if you're following along, you can take a look at our budget. Starts at page 321 in the budget book. So start off with just an overview of who we are and what employees we have. There's 14 full-time employees in the proposed budget. Currently, we have 13.88, and I'll get into that in a little bit. We're made up of 4 civil attorneys, including myself. We have 3 dedicated civil attorneys, plus the administrator, myself, and then we have 4 criminal prosecutors and one civil paralegal, 1 criminal paralegal, and 3 criminal support staff, legal assistants. So our mission here is provide quality legal representation to the city and its employees. Don't forget quality. So we're kind of behind the scenes. We don't have projects to talk about. I mean, but many of the projects that you've heard about so far and that you'll continue to hear about, we are behind the scenes effective, as Greg just pointed out to me. Part of our role is to keep staff out of jail, and the other part of our role is to put the bad guys in jail. That's how we'll sum it up. But there are many state and federal regulations, as well as city policies and city ordinances that you all adopt that govern the way that the city conducts its business. And on the civil side, our job is to help staff weave through those regulations and get things done. We help to prepare legislation, we bring and defend lawsuits, and again, prosecute. A majority of our employees are primarily involved in prosecuting cases in the Renton Municipal Court. So this chart's in the budget, and I just thought I'd talk about it a little bit because this is the same setup that we had before, and I didn't change anything. It shows as we have 8 FTEs in safety and health, 4 in representative government, and 2 in internal support. This could be split up in a number of different ways. Our civil attorneys and paralegals also support safety and health. We work on code enforcement and things like that. We support livable community. We support everything that the city does, I would say. So again, projects that come through the city oftentimes are coming through our department. That's where those costs are going. So highlights, I'll talk a little bit more on the following slides on a Rule 9 internship program. This is an efficient way to continue to provide services for an increasing number of cases. Increase a paralegal to a 0.12 FTE, or from 0.88 to 0.1 to a full FTE. Operational budget reallocation. So one of the things that I wanted to do is provide additional funding for training. We had a very small training budget, and I look at training as a very important part for attorneys to get out there and find out what the trends are, what the issues are amongst municipal attorneys. There's really good municipal attorneys training out there that's affordable. but we had a very small training budget before. I think it was $1,000 for the prosecutors or something like that a year. So before I came and asked for additional money for that, I first looked at the budget and found out whether or not we had any savings elsewhere. So what I did is I cut all of our overtime budget, which was a full $1,000. We never used it. And we cut about $9,000 from supplies because we hadn't been using that. So rather than asking you for more money, I just wanted to point out that we're being responsible for $2 where we had savings. Before I asked you for anything, we wanted to make sure we used those savings. We did have an increase in interfund payments. That, I believe, is applicable across the board for all departments. That relates to the RFA leaving and the rest of the departments absorbing those overhead costs. So a little bit about the Rule 9 internship program. It is a law student, and for Rule 9, it needs to be someone who's completed their second year of law school. And those law students can actually perform many of the duties of an attorney with appropriate training and oversight. They can't do everything, but they can take on many of the tasks that we do, particularly the lower level tasks that frees up our prosecutors in order to spend more time on the more difficult cases, or more time just on the cases that require a little bit more experience. It also allows the intern to build a resume, which benefits not just the intern, but it benefits us and the general prosecution legal community. The hope would be that if we had an opening, we could potentially take one of these Rule 9 interns who have already been trained at the cost of about $15 an hour is what we've budgeted here for it, and be able to step in and be a productive attorney. So why do we need it? We're projecting through 2018 that there will be a 20% increase in criminal cases. That includes a 47% increases in DUI cases, 17% increases in domestic violence cases, 242% increases in jury trials. And we have in here, this is over 2015 levels because we had to use something. I'll show you on the next page that it's actually been pretty consistent up until this year, and I think that largely is a result of our full staffing levels in the police department. The more police officers you have, the more resources you have in order to fight crime, in order to file charges. So we, as a direct result of that, we have more cases. Have here 19% increases in civil infraction cases. That actually impacts the court more than it impacts us. We appear on civil infractions that are contested by attorneys, but that's a small proportion of the total cases. So that's not necessarily going to be the reason for the Rule 9 program, but it is something that the Rule 9 program can help us on those civil infraction calendars while the prosecutors work on the criminal cases. Little caveat, you'll see numbers, I think, from the court later. The numbers are not, particularly the 2018 numbers are projected. We took numbers from what we had at May when we were preparing our proposed budget. I'm not sure if the court has more updated numbers, but the trends and the general numbers you see here are going to be similar, and the court's also impacted, so giving you a preview of their budget asks probably.
Help yourself.
So you can see here a trend in jury trials going steadily up, and jury trials certainly are a large impact both on the court and on our office. It takes a lot of preparation to get ready. It takes coordination with witnesses. That's one of the things. I think it was in 2015 you approved a prosecution paralegal, and that prosecution paralegal is really necessary for us to be able to take on cases that involve interpreters, that deal with complicated issues that require a lot of witness coordination. So I don't have a good reason as to exactly why we've been having this trend, and I should point out the numbers here are inaccurate, and then it shows 240. I times it by 10 just so it would show you some scale when on this same chart. But anyway, so the reason for the increase in jury trials, it's not always predictable whether or not someone wants their day in court, essentially. But we do have prosecutors that are willing to take difficult cases. And part of that is through the funding that you've provided on domestic violence cases to fund a dedicated prosecutor to work on domestic violence cases, as well as that criminal prosecutor or criminal paralegal. So, again, I already touched on this. The Rule 9 internship program would aid current staff in prosecuting these caseloads and would allow for prosecuting attorneys to focus on cases bring the greatest benefit to Renton and its citizens. Moving on to the paralegal increase. Our civil paralegal, Stephanie Rary, she was with Larry's law firm before she came into the city. I think that she was there. Between there and the city, it's been over 20 years that she has experience. She's really integral. She's been working part-time by her own choice, but we've also had an increasing caseload that we think necessitates her coming on board full-time, which she's actually indicated that she's ready and wants to do based upon where she's at with her family life. I will say that she's as productive as a full-time employee anyway, so adding this .12, probably more like adding .2. So some of the reasons why we need this additional time, we've had an increased involvement in and oversight of civil defense litigation. I think it was at the end of 2015 was our last year in the WCIA insurance program. The WCIA program took over all civil litigation, essentially. The city attorney's office had very little involvement because the WCIA retained ultimate decision authority as to whether to settle cases. So they cut us out of the loop a little bit. Cases that have been accruing since then, so it could be that there was an injury in 2015 that wasn't filed until 2017. The statute of limitations is generally 3 years. We've seen an increase in the number of cases that are not covered by WCIA, and I expect that will continue into the next biennium. So we now manage and oversee the attorneys who are working on civil litigation. We also jointly appear with outside attorneys. We've had at least one case where I would say Leslie Clark put as much time and effort into the case as our outside attorneys, as well as Stephanie. Stephanie is, our paralegal is really integral to us being able to efficiently perform our job. She keeps the cases organized and spends time on discovery and other things that the attorneys can certainly do, but it's more effective and efficient to have her do. We've had increased involvement in administrative appeals and hearings, vehicle impounds, seizures of drugs. There's just been a trend of that. Again, that's probably due to the increasing number of police officers on the street. I already talked a little bit about increased involvement in civil litigation and defense. We're also involved more in nuisance abatement. It's been one of my priorities since I started. In fact, we reorganized the department to where we have one attorney that's primarily focused on police representation and code enforcement representation. So we're making public safety kind of one of our main priorities. By focusing one person just on those things, we have more capacity to bring lawsuits, to go after nuisance properties and things like that. So accomplishments, we have remained within our allotted budget. As I said, we've had some savings that we've been able to going forward. We're going to put that towards training. We've increased efficiencies. We're working on electronic forms, contracting forms where it's feasible. Not all contracts work well for templates, but we are working on increasing the amount of templates, which is more efficient both for us and for city clients. And successfully replaced retiring senior level attorneys. I won't comment on myself, but I will comment on Leslie Clark and Cheryl Byer coming in as our senior attorneys. The reorganization where we have Alex Tuttle focused on code enforcement and police representation would not be able to happen if we didn't have such competent attorneys in Cheryl and Leslie. Being able to take on a lot more work, the way that divvied up, it meant more of the department divisions ended up under those two positions. Again, we've managed an increase in criminal case filings and an increase in jury trials and increased participation in the civil litigation. We're really working on proactive representation of city clients. So we attempt to attend more meetings, both boards, council meetings, but really internally, meeting more frequently and checking in more frequently with our division and department clients to make sure that we're proactive and preventative. I'd much rather prevent liability from happening than responding to liability that's already accrued. And we focused on code enforcement, nuisance action, litigation, focusing on positive, productive working atmosphere that allows us to be more productive, more efficient, and we retain people. We have not had anyone leave in the last biennium, other than the retirements that we've replaced. Oh, I do want to give credit to our prosecutors have spent a lot of time, a lot of additional resources on police training. The type of police training we're talking about is largely training them how to work with prosecutors and how to prepare cases that make our prosecutions more successful. And we do have a very successful record of convictions. We have increased filings, but we also have a very good record of having successful outcomes. And a lot of that goes to the quality work that our police department does, and our prosecutors are committed towards working with those police officers to help them through the process. So going forward, more of the same, I would say. We're going to continue to prioritize deterrence and punishment of harmful law violations. That's the criminal side, domestic violence, DUIs, but also chronic nuisance properties and other violations of our code. We do more frequently look at whether or not criminal prosecution is appropriate for violation of the less traditional criminal law violations, the code violations, the nuisance properties, and so forth. Many of the violations of our code are criminal violations. If they're a choice of either civil enforcement or criminal violations or a combination thereof, we make sure that we have that hammer of the criminal law violation if the civil side doesn't work. Going to continue to increase efficiency through technology. Explore use of therapeutic courts and diversionary programs. We're not proposing any expenditures or any programs at this time. What we want to do is keep our finger on the pulse as to what resources are available for that. We do recognize that an increasing number of our criminal cases are repeat offenders, and it seems to us that it is mental health issues or drug addiction issues that are causing these things. And throwing the book at them and putting them in jail isn't always the best outcome in order to prevent them from coming back to it. So to the extent that there are those resources available, we're going to look at those as we go forward. Questions?
Any questions? Ruth?
Sorry. You say that continue to prioritize deterrence and punishment of harmful law violations, including domestic violence, DUIs, and chronic nuisance properties. Are the chronic nuisance properties have the chronic nuisance properties have increased or decreased over the years? Do you know?
I don't have statistics on the increase or decrease.
Okay, thank you.
Is the Rule 9 program, is that one, would that be one intern, or would that be a number of interns you would use?
It's most likely going to be one. I believe that we budgeted for around $15 an hour for a part-time, I can't remember how many hours, 17 hours or something like that. We haven't decided exactly how it will look. We might start it full-time in the summer and then have them during the school year work part-time after that. We're going to work with the school. We want to make sure we have it approved before we finalize anything, but we're going to work with the school and see how that works. We're also going to try to take advantage of work-study programs to the extent those are available and get good candidates that are eligible for that.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan?
First of all, I would say congrats for that's an impressive stat as far as managing that 20% increase and the 200+ increase in jury trials. So the Rule 9 obviously is intended to address that. My question is, if it's not a blip on the trend line and is an establishment of a new trend line, is that enough to handle a similar increase in volume, or would you guys be able to continue to do more with less as you did in this?
I don't think that it would be enough to handle a similar increase. I think that it would be enough to handle if we level off at our current levels. If it continues to increase, we would have to figure out how to address that, whether it's with an additional Rule 9. I will say that a Rule 9 isn't a perfect solution because they're not experienced attorneys. They take our existing attorneys away from what they're doing in order to train the new person. So it probably takes, after a first quarter or semester, they become productive for us after that, but for the first quarter or semester, they're taking our resources. So I don't want to oversell the Rule 9 program. I think it's just one tool that we're looking to help us, and as I said, it also helps us potentially if we do have turnover, which prosecution positions tend to have higher turnover than civil positions historically. So to the extent that we have turnover there, we have someone hopefully that would be ready to come in. Yeah, I can't really speak to whether we can continue because it's a fairly new thing for us to have this high of a workload. And I'll tell you that our staff is busy. They're dealing with it through efficiencies, but they're doing great and they haven't asked for anything more than this.
Any other questions?
No.
Sina, great job. And I just have a kind of a comment and observation is, as you may or may not know, I'm on the Forensic Investigation Council for the State Crime Lab. And the cases that you're trying, the DOEs and all that, are becoming far more complicated with the blood tests and having to draw the blood and that. And so I can see where it's going to be take more time to put them together. So with that, I just say thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Mr. President?
Yes.
Yeah, and I wanted to say that too. I really appreciate the focus on public safety. I think it's money well spent, and I appreciate the efficiency you've shown and the ability to tackle so much. So I agree with Mr. McGurven's direction that, just keep us aware if it turns out to not be enough.
Yeah, I would guess that the most likely reason why we would need help, as long as we're fully employed and we don't have anyone out on FMLA, they do a really good job of covering for each other. If we had a long-term shortage from an FMLA, we'd probably have a contract for help.
That's it. I think we have human resources next. Oh, yeah, human resources. I can't read either.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ellen Bradley Mock. I'm the Human Resources and Risk Management Administrator for the city. This evening is my pleasure to share with you some highlights of our last 2 years in our department, as well as talk with you about our initiatives moving forward. My budget presentation begins on page 3-83 of the budget book. Our mission statement in human resources, I should advance this. Our mission statement in human resources and risk management is to work in partnership with my colleagues, the other administrators, as well as teams of employees and individuals. As you know, any individual and employee is welcome to come into our department. We try to create a positive work environment that empowers all of our employees to do what we hired them to do, which is serve the citizens of the city of Renton. As you can see from our organizational chart, our FTE count, with your approval, will increase to 13 FTEs. That's 3 in our administrative support area, which also provides all the logistics for our employee training and development. And then our 3 divisions, employee relations, which is managed by Kim Gilman, and that division has 4 FTEs. Our benefits division, which is managed by Wendy Ritterizer, and she has 3 FTEs. And then risk management, which is headed by Gary Lamb, our risk manager, and has 2 FTEs. As you can see from our city service area, all of our services reside in the internal support area. We have a few budget highlights that are captured here on this page, and then I'll talk about the other 2 as we proceed in the presentation. Our personnel benefits increased by $3 million due to projected increases in overall medical, dental, claims, and premiums. And we'll be having a transfer increase of $900,000 in 2019 due to transferring a portion of the balance of annexation sales tax reserve to the general fund. The 2 other budget changes that are highlighted for this next biennium are 2 new program requests. I'm going to mention them here, and then I will talk with them more at length in the preceding slides. First program request is to increase our HR intermittent salary and wage budget line item from $8,100 to $25,000 annually. This will reflect actual wages and current standards for ongoing part-time supplemental positions. Right now, we do have an HR office aide. Our other program request this year is to create a new FTE as a supported employment position. This position will be available for any department to utilize, budgeted at the N1 level position. Salaries and benefits for 2019 will be $43,083, and that's because we won't recruit for the whole year. We probably won't start recruiting until February to fill in June. And then for 2020, the total cost will be $97,445. More information to come on what a supported employment position is. Looking at our department performance measures, I'll note that we went down in areas that were important and we went up in areas that were important. So I'll just highlight a few of those. In 2017, we were able to provide 12 different training and development programs for our city staff, which is up from 2016. A significant change that I want to draw your attention to is under our 3rd program area, which is safeguard public interests and assets. We completed 73% inspections on our city-owned facilities. And this is a very important part for our insurance and to get our premiums down as low as we can. Gary worked very hard to increase that number from 2016, from 45% to 73%. And then with the departure of the RFA, and we hope with an increase in our safety programs, we were able to reduce the number of worker compensation claims from 72 in 2016 to just 36 in 2017, which is a reduction of 50%. Some background on our program requests. Our first program request, we're asking for an increase in our supplemental salaries and wages budget. The Human Resources budget for intermittent salaries and wages has been at the same low level for many years. In 2013, long before I came on scene, our longtime office aide left and the duties of the position were expanded to include electronic data entry, auditing I-9 and other records, revising filing systems, and carrying out independent technical projects. In order to more appropriately compensate the position and to reflect current standards of compensation, Human Resources has increased the hourly wage of the HR office aide. And if any of you have met her, her name is Cheryl, and she's just a gem. She retired from the City of Auburn's HR department, and she's just been an outstanding supplemental employee for us. Our second budget request has to do with a supported employment position. And this can be a bit confusing at first when you first hear about it, but we would be proud to join the ranks of King County, Bellevue, and Seattle if we were able to secure this position through your support. A supported employment position supports the strategic initiative included in the City of Renton business plan, which states that the city is dedicated to building an inclusive and informed city with opportunities for all. One of the strategies in the HR Tactical Inclusion Plan, which you approved in 2017, is to hire an individual into a supported employment position. Individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities have a higher unemployment rate than those without disabilities. So someone hired into a supported employment position would have one of these types of disabilities. They come with a job coach from Highline Community College, which is part of the program and part of the cost. It doesn't cost us anything extra. An analysis of the workload that could be completed by a supported employee has determined that this employee could overlap into at least 2 other departments. Some of the duties that aren't listed in the slide that a supported employment employee could do are things like scan documents and maintain files, data entry, stocking supplies, mail delivery, shredding, collating materials into packets, and other types of administrative duties that are along the lines of clerical. What will it do for these departments and for our city? It will maximize staff resources, strengthen our diversity, increase departmental cooperation and teamwork. It'll benefit public policy, which coincides again, as I mentioned, with our business plan to be an inclusive city, and it's just good for staff morale. Those are our 2 budget requests for the next biennium. So looking back, what have we accomplished? As I mentioned, we have 3 separate divisions in the HR department, and in the Employee Relations Division, we published the HR Tactical Inclusion Plan in 2017 and took action steps to implementing partnerships with community organizations to develop public service internships, diversified hiring panels, and made enhancements to the application process to further reduce bias in hiring. And as you know, because I've mentioned it to you before, we now do anonymous applications. So no names or addresses are present when the subject matter expert, which is the hiring manager, makes their selection of who to proceed with in their interviews. We are in partnership with other local government employers and participated in the steering committee and hosted the inaugural Public Sector Career Fair in Renton in 2018, which was just last month. We have continued support to the Police Department's Teen Academy with a total of 32 teens in attendance in 2018, which is up from 8 in 2017. In 2017, we attended 4 career fairs, and we increased that to 7 so far this year in 2018. We filled a total of 106 vacancies in 2017 and 73 vacancies so far this year. That was through August. The number is increased since then, probably by about 5 or 6. We've trained all new employees in customer service, performance management, and anti-harassment and non-discrimination policies. We provide training opportunities at our quarterly managers meetings to increase our supervisory skills and with workplace investigations. Our benefits division has been busy as well. They revised the deferred compensation plan structure to a multi-employer plan so that we could include the RFA. Are you guys able to see this presentation?
It comes and goes.
Okay, I'm really sorry that I haven't been very good at.
Sometimes you have to look over there.
Oh, okay, I noticed you doing that, all right. I'll try to be better about pushing the buttons. As I mentioned, we have a multi-employer plan which is co-managed with the Renton Regional Fire Authority. We had to update our committee structure and operating guidelines in order to accommodate this new plan structure. We negotiated a mid-contract fee reduction with TIAA for record-keeping services and conducted an RFP to review and improve investment advisor services. We updated the LEF 1 board operating guidelines and claims procedures to improve efficiency and service to members, control costs, and to improve transparency. We reviewed processes, improved efficiency in administration and reporting for leave programs, FMLA, and worker compensation programs. We've improved employee communication with self-service flyers outlining streamlined processes, improved transparency, and reporting to supervisors and managers. We've increased participation in wellness events through outreach and expanded committee involvement. We instituted new workshops for employees who are nearing retirement, providing tools for planning and transitioning to retirement. We are addressing issues with the health plan vendor services and accountability, and we've instituted a plan when standards are not met that will actually end up in cost savings. We implemented the new state sick leave program, including processes and record keeping and training for employees and supervisors. Our risk management division continues to manage the city's property, liability, and auto physical self-insured insurance programs for an estimated annual savings of over $200,000 a year. In addition, we have added a risk management analyst position, thanks to your support, to promote and improve the employee safety program and enhance safety regulation compliance. We reorganized the Central Safety Committee and related policies to enhance employee participation and effectiveness. What are we planning to do in 2019 and 2020? We're going to continue to implement action steps that were laid out in the HR Inclusion Tactical Plan and measure success of steps already taken. Continue to survey new hires and hiring managers during the probationary period to further enhance the recruitment and selection process. Collect and analyze employee survey data in early 2020. Continue to review and revise personnel policies and job descriptions. Continue to provide success signals training to teams citywide to enhance communication skills. Develop supported employment program with your support. Embark on a market study of non-represented positions in 2019 and 2020, and explore new technologies to streamline HR operations and enhance the onboarding experience. Benefits will be embarking on a project of evaluating brokerage services for the benefits plan and conduct an RFP as the current broker is winding down their practice. Replace a retiring staff member with significant institutional knowledge and onboard a replacement. Review city policies related to benefits and leave, I did too soon, and leave programs and update where necessary. Continue to look for opportunities to streamline processes and improve employee outreach and services. Implement the new state paid leave program. Expand retirement planning workshops to include mid and early career employees. And by the way, that program has been hugely popular, very successful, and I believe that Wendy could probably spend every day of the week for the next year doing those workshops if she had the time to do that. They've been very popular. In risk management, they will continue to engage in aggressive collections of funds owed to the city from responsible third parties for damage to city property. Utilize the city's property and casualty broker of record, which is Alliant Insurance Services, to improve property and casualty self-insurance programs when it's financially advantageous to the city. And lastly, continue to review and update safety and risk management related policies and procedures. And with that, I'll entertain any questions you might have.
Any questions? Ruth?
Hi.
Hi, Ruth.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Page 3/85. In the highlights of budget changes, personal benefits increased by $3 million due projected increases in overall medical dental claims and premiums. This $3 million increase includes the benefits for the 28.12 additional positions proposed in this budget.
That budget line increase is due to projected increases in claims and premiums. So yes, if those employees have claims, actually, you're asking for the new employees, the new positions?
The new positions.
You know, I'm not sure about that. I'll have to research that.
Thank you.
Jan, do you know?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
For all of the new positions that are being proposed in this budget, were those included in the calculation for the $3 million increase? I don't know.
On the 3 million.
On page 3-85, it's the third bullet.
That would include everything.
For the new positions as well?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
We have it.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That was easy. Now we get the hard one. The court.
Good evening. I am Terry Ross, the municipal court judge here in Renton, and I'm here alongside Bonnie Woodrow, the court services administrator. We're here to present to you our budget. First, want to thank Bonnie for doing all the work. I really haven't done anything. No, it's the truth. I mean, Bonnie is a jewel. She has come to Renton and dragged to court screaming incline into the digital world of case management. We have fully automated and gone paperless as we can go. We still have to actually hand defendants and parties documents, but everything that is stored in files. I'm here to answer any questions you may have about what's going on in the courtroom and what I'm seeing. If you have questions about what was presented by the city attorney, I may be able to address some of those. And Bonnie is here with the numbers and the administrative part of it. So I'm going to turn it over to her, and then we'll take your questions. I'm sure you probably have some.
Thank you, Judge Gerardo. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Good evening, Council. My name is Bonnie Woodrow. I'm the Court Services Director. We're here this evening to present what we've done the past 2 years and what our request is for moving forward the next 2 years. Hold on.
You guys are still using mouse? Wow.
Kind of. We're arrowing up and down. Our mission statement has stayed the same throughout the years. Independent and impartial branch of government, providing objective and accessible, timely resolution of all cases, and the protection of rights, and the dignified and fair treatment of all parties. And that's very important to this court. And we do a lot of work to treat people fairly and provide excellent customer service, even though a good portion of the people coming before the court are not entirely happy. Our org chart includes the addition of 2 FTEs, and I'll get into the reason for that, just like everybody else before me said. We're divided into basically 3 parts: an infraction processing division, a criminal case processing division, our probation department, and in 2017 we added a court security officer. We comprise 2 of the service areas. The safety and health is our probation department, and the rest of us fall under representative government. Our request for 2019 is $2.646 million, and for 2020 is $2.75 million. Our performance measures, again, not everybody is happy when they come to court, so when we ask them for their opinion, occasionally it isn't positive. But I would like to point out the 3rd performance measure and the 5th performance measure, and it's the defendant's satisfaction with the ability to obtain court records timely. And with our transition to a digital case file, we are able to give case information immediately. When somebody emails us, we're within a couple of minutes of providing either the full case file or the information that they're requesting. On the other side of that is the administrative case processing, and that takes a little bit longer. But for case processing, it's almost immediate, and we've received very high marks from everybody that has that we've responded to. And here is the heart, the engine of the court is our court filings filed by the police department. In this slide, you can see that our, as the city attorney mentioned, we've had an increase over 2017 of about 1,100 cases just for our criminal infraction and parking. And with that came the rather unexpected increase of jury trials to the tune of 240% increase since 2015. And what comes, the expenses that we've requested because of that increase are the increase in pro tem time that we have to have in order to hear the trials. The interpreters, a lot of these cases require 2 interpreters in order to try. It's very, very expensive. We've also had an increase in, of course, our juror witness fees and staff overtime in order to process these trials. On the other side of this court filing grid is our photo enforcement. And with the addition of additional sites that came online mid-June, we project that we will, in 2017, we had 25,000 approximately photo enforcement filings. At the end of 2018, we believe we will have approximately 52,000 filings just for photo enforcement, and that's just for a 6-month period. So our request moving forward is an additional 2 FTEs for this program. And if we receive the request for those 2, if we receive approval, we would be able to bring this program in-house, meaning, Councilmember Person is very familiar with this, meaning that we will be able to effectively collect better on our photo enforcement citations. Currently now, our case management system, the way the program was originally set up, we're utilizing ATS as the case management system. Because we do that, we're not able to put holds on vehicle registrations for those people who do not pay, those cases in collection. This is a very big project. If we bring it in-house, we will be able to place holds and collect better on our photo enforcement collection cases. And to give you a number, it's a large number. It's our cases in collection. We have 64,000 photo enforcement cases in collection to the tune of about 6.4 million. Six
In collection?
million.
Mr. President, is this program self-sufficient, or what is the cost?
Well, I can't answer that. Finance can answer that better. We only have one piece of this program. The police department holds the contract and approves the citations, so they have a different portion of that program. But I believe it is self-sufficient.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
And so if we brought it in-house, in addition to, maybe being more aggressive about those collections, would we also be able to keep a larger percentage of what citizens pay in the fee when they do?
No, it would be the same. It would, when it rolls to collection, it goes with a late penalty. The collection agency collects the full dollar amount for the court in addition to a fee that they charge.
Okay, what about ATS though? Do they still get a cut when?
They do not. ATS charges by the location per camera. So it's a set fee.
Oh, okay.
And whatever.
Oh, so they don't take a cut?
No, they do not.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Maybe can I interfere?
Of course.
The thing is, it's the infraction doesn't go on your driving record because it's more considered like a parking ticket to be.
Correct.
If you look at it as a parking ticket, it doesn't go on your driving record. The insurance company doesn't find out. Consequently, you can't really issue a warrant for it. The only handle that you can have on somebody that says, I'm not going to pay it, is you have to fill out a form and send it down to the Department of Motor Vehicles. And so the next time you go to renew your license tabs, you can't renew your license tabs until you come back, and would, in this case, either come back right to the court or to the collection agency and pay the money.
Correct.
And then that comes back. The advantage of us bringing these 2 people in-house to do all this, that big number that you heard that is out there, this will most likely more than pay, it will definitely more than pay its way for the 2 employees. But more important to me, it makes it makes it more fair for the honest people who said, yeah, here's my check and I'll pay it. I mean, if they want to dispute it, they can still come to court.
Correct.
But this is those people that just say, oh, I'll throw it in a garbage can and they'll never come and get me. This process will allow us to go get them. And on top of that, according to the mayor, he's assured us that this will pay for the training facility on the 4th floor. So as you can see, I'm all for the training facility and I'm all for making people pay their bills. So I think this is a wonderful idea.
You're correct. There is a greater accountability factor, moving this in internally. On to revenue. Another graph that illustrates our revenue that we're bringing in for infraction, criminal, and parking. There is a national trend that I'd like to talk about for just a minute, not for very long, of not imposing costs on indigent defendants. This was a legislative action this year that prohibits the court from assessing certain costs on indigent defendants. And it's going to decrease our ability to hold a defendant accountable from a financial standpoint. Now, it's a national trend, and I just wanted to make the council aware that as much as we impose, we won't be able to impose as much in the coming years. And it's a statewide initiative, and it's a national trend. So. On the other side is our photo enforcement revenue, and we are increasing our photo revenue estimate from, just a second, 2.1 million that we collected in 2017, and for 2018, our estimate is 3.2 million. With the increased, that was only 6 months of our new locations. Our accomplishments, we designed a new juror management program. We really needed it because of the increase in jury trials. Impound hearings were relocated from the city clerk's office to the court. We developed an online public portal with interactive forms that was very beneficial to the public. This enhanced e-forms is an internal efficiency. We expanded Laserfish workflows. And lastly, we added 2 attorney-client conference room for increased privacy during negotiations. Our goals, if approved, we are going to transfer the 65,000 cases in the photo enforcement program from a third-party case management system to our JIS, which is the Judicial Information System, for increased efficiency and revenue collection. We're going to develop a public portal for access to court case files. This will be awesome when we have completed it. From home, you'll be able to access your case file, your criminal case file, your infraction case file from home. We're going to concentrate on the photo program first. So might take a while. On customer service, we're going to attempt to increase our service levels. Because of the photo enforcement program almost doubling, we've had many people at the front counter, increased mail. Phone calls are a lot.
And they're not very happy.
And they're not very happy. And we're going to expand the use of rent and results to gain greater understanding of what people really want now, because their needs change over time. No fee increases that we are proposing, and we welcome your questions.
Any questions?
Mr. President?
Yes.
The first one I have is, I don't know if it's fair to ask you to speculate maybe a little bit as to Judge Gerardo, do you know why there be more jury trials? Do you have any theories about that?
Well, I do. I don't know that there is a corresponding number of domestic violence cases that are being filed to the number of jury trials that we're having. And so it's got to be a change in philosophy and practice on the part of the prosecutor's office with regard to what cases will be filed and how those cases will be prosecuted. And so there, in my opinion, there's less negotiations where defendants are given an opportunity to come to some resolution other than going to trial. That's the only thing I can, and I think that's pretty spot on, actually.
If I may paraphrase, so we're taking a little bit harder line in domestic violence cases as a prosecution team, and then that's leading to the more jury trial.
Well, I think that is a fair
Or
characterization.
less plea bargaining, is that a correct way to?
Well, that's, plea bargaining is what keeps the courts moving.
Right.
Criminal courts moving. If that just shuts down, then the court's totally backed up.
Right.
So it's a combination of, in my opinion, a combination of prioritizing what cases should go forward and being willing to offer something that the defendant can benefit, thinks I'm getting something out of this. And that's usually, it's the give and take in
Okay.
plea bargaining.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Speak to it just real quick, and I don't want to get into the details of every case because I don't know the details of every case. My understanding from our prosecutors is certainly that they're taking cases to trial that would have been probably dismissed under past prosecutors because we have additional resources. We take they're difficult cases, multiple interpreters. We have witnesses that recant their statements.
see.
And those are particularly difficult to prove, and oftentimes prosecutors will dismiss them. My understanding is the offers that have been given in those cases are usually something like an SOC, where the case would ultimately be dismissed, but they have to go through some hoops in order for that to happen. There are times where the SOC is not offered, and usually that's because they have a long history of keeping away with it. And so our priority is on domestic violence, and if there's a history of domestic violence, that oftentimes escalates and it becomes much more serious than what we see. So yes, I mean, I think I agree with the judge. It is it's a philosophy. I want to be careful to say, not to say that we've been unreasonable in what offers are given or not given. There's reasons behind it.
Okay.
and I wasn't suggesting that either, because
No,
I don't know what the offers are.
Right.
I just see that there's a trend where there are more cases going to trial than there have been in the past. But we're a trial court. That's what we do.
Right.
And for a long time, that wasn't the case. There were a lot of cases that if a witness didn't show up or didn't want to participate, that those cases were routinely dismissed. And sometimes it was really frustrating for the court to see all these cases filed and then they're just dismissed at readiness because they don't have a witness. And
Well, if I may, I mean, I appreciate the thoughtful discussion of all the tools and considerations, and I think from where I sit, I'm just glad that resources aren't the problem. I mean, I don't want it to be resource limited. I think if some offenders deserve a diversion or whatever, you know, that's fine if they're doing it for the right reasons,
well, in
not
some
because we're out of resources.
But in some cases, resources are an issue. For example, you're operating under time constraints to bring people to trial.
Right.
And we only have 2 courtrooms. And so we start to back up because of
see.
the number of cases on what's called the speedy trial rule.
Oh,
And
okay.
so we're juggling cases and cases are being continued. We just don't have the space.
Sure. Okay.
So that there are issues regarding
resources.
resources.
Thanks.
Another issue regarding resources that's on the horizon are our judicial needs. The Office of the Administrator of the Courts, or Administrative Offices of the Court now, just this last week released a judicial needs survey for all the courts. And we're at 1.51, I think it was, 1.51, with the increase of jury trials and the increase in photo enforcement hearings. Bonnie has a projection on that.
I think by the time that we pull photo enforcement into JIS, the judicial needs estimate will be 2.5 judges. But we will approach that next year.
I see. Okay. Okay.
But we're really busy.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well,
Yeah, we're really busy.
Thank you.
I just,
Thanks for the info.
I want to clarify one thing. When you said SOC, use the
It's a
abbreviation.
stipulated order of continuance. The case is
Okay.
continued
Okay.
until they meet certain conditions, and then it's usually
Okay.
dismissed at the end of that.
I just want to be sure that the public knows what we were talking about.
Thank you. Yeah.
With that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have about 13 minutes, and the police department's I'm gonna make an executive decision, and the police department, you gotta come back next week. I'm sorry.
And so do we, so.
But this has all been very an interesting evening. I want to say thank you to all the staff. And so I think the plan for next week first up will be the police department, and then we can go into discussions on any of the budget items that you want to. And then hopefully we'll have a discussion too on the fees, the fee schedule, and then there's, I had one question that I would get a little information on, and it's a debt management, and the overview of the debt management, and then also for Public Works, showing the bonding that we have outstanding. And neither of those should be very long, but I'd like to see that. So that would be the schedule for next week. I would like to thank everybody, and we are adjourned, and we'll come back as a full council in a few minutes.